Oh, hey. Hey, God. Yeah, it's Lily. So I just wanted to talk to you about me dying alone. Hi, my name is Lillian Fallon, and this is Ascension Presents. I am a freelance writer, and I'm also a single Catholic woman, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about building a life of meaning as a single person. What if I told you that you would never get married? What would you do? I remember for me that this phrase felt like a death sentence, and I thought, if that's my life, I don't want to live it. Just really scary thoughts. But maybe you've been there too. It's really scary to imagine a life where you're not getting the things that you so desperately desire, the things that you've been praying for, and the thing that you think will bring you ultimate fulfillment. Sometimes this feels like the worst case scenario for our lives. The truth is, we are not afraid of dying alone. We're not afraid of being alone for forever and never getting married. We are afraid of not living a life of meaning. We're afraid of not having that fulfillment that comes from those relationships. So the question for single Catholics shouldn't be, what are you doing to get married? What are you doing to find somebody? The question should be, what are you doing to build a life of meaning for yourself? What are you doing to build a life that you love? Because ideally, when we do that, if a relationship doesn't work out, we aren't thrown into this tailspin of despair and hopelessness because the one chance that you had to get married is over, and now you're going to be alone for forever, and it's going to be miserable. Sometimes we treat dating like the last plane out of Vietnam. That really just means that you are putting an unfair amount of pressure and your entire worth into a relationship. And regardless, you're not going to be happy in that life. You have to have a life that is bringing you joy regardless of your relationships. So the question should be to Catholics, not what are you doing to find somebody, but what are you doing to build that life of meaning? What are the gifts that you're utilizing? I love theology of the body, and St. John Paul II talks a lot about Gaudium et Spes. And in Gaudium et Spes, it clarifies that man can only find himself except for insincere gift of self. And so St. John Paul II talks about this, of course, in regard to marriage, two spouses giving themselves to each other. But this call to self-gift doesn't just activate when you're married. It doesn't just start and there you go, give yourself. It's something that is in the core of our being from the moment of conception. It's literally who we are. We were made in the image of God, which means that we were made to give because God is endless gift himself. And so if we're made in his image, the only way that we can understand who we are in God's image is through giving ourselves to those around us in that reciprocal gift. How do we, as single people, discover these gifts that we've been given so that we can partake in that union with others and have that fulfillment and feel that meaning in life? I want to talk to you guys about how to identify the gifts that you might have and how to identify the passions that you might have and how to envision a future where you could be using all of those things. So if we're all called to a life of finding ourselves in gift, even as single people, you might be wondering, okay, well, what gifts do I have to share with people? How can I use these gifts? Well, I'm here to go through a list, and we're gonna have a little bit of a workshop on how to identify your gifts, your passions, and how you might be called to use them. Grab a piece of paper and a pen, or pull out the Notes app on your phone and get ready. So first off, let's identify some of your gifts, and just write down anything that comes to mind. First, what talents, gifts, skills come naturally to you? What do you excel in, essentially? For me, it's writing. I've always found myself writing. It's a natural gift that I have. Think about what people have complimented you on. What have people said that you are particularly good at? Now, the next question, is there a certain passion you have that always seems to crop up in your life, that always just pops up in different stages? For me, it was writing. I started writing as a kid. Then in middle school, I started the school newspaper. I did the same thing in high school, and I went to college. At that point, I had no interest in pursuing writing, but it's been the constant theme in my life. And now I'm a freelance writer and I'm writing a book. So think about the things that are a consistent theme in your life. Okay, so now you have a list of things that you're particularly good at. But just because you're good at something doesn't necessarily mean that you love it. You could be really great at math, but not necessarily have a passion for it. And I definitely don't recommend pursuing something that you're not passionate about. So out of this list of gifts, let's figure out which ones you're the most passionate about. For example, which one fills you with confidence? What activity doesn't feel like work at all? Does time fly by when you're using it? Does it bring you energy and make you excited when you're using it? And lastly, do you sleep better at night after using this gift? So now compare the gifts that you have with the passions and try and narrow it down. Maybe you have a couple things in there. So circle those things, and now let's figure out, what does the future look like utilizing these gifts? Let's imagine it. Let's have a fun imagination session. So right now, how are you currently helping other people with this gift? And if you aren't helping anybody with this gift right now, imagine how this could benefit other people. And now, what kind of a job, activity, volunteer work, schooling, or mission work would help you to pursue this passion? So I want you to imagine a life. Imagine this life where you're using this passion every single day. What does it look like? Who is involved in it? Are you going back to school? So let's look at this list of gifts and passions that you have and imagine, what does the future look like where you're actually utilizing and using these passions every single day? Would you dive into the pro-life cause? Would you go back to school? Would you write that book? Would you teach? Would you start volunteering at hospitals? Would you start that company? Would you hand out flyers for babysitting at your parish? What are the ways in which you would feel fulfilled and have joy be brought into your life through using these gifts? So dare to imagine your life without the dream guy, without the dream girl. Dare to imagine your life single, not married. If you're using these gifts and passions, is it really that scary? Trust that you have been willed for your own sake. Trust that God has given you these gifts and passions for a reason. And if He has given them to you, there has to be fulfillment in them that can be brought into your life. Trust that God is using you through these gifts. And it's in these gifts and passions that God is working within us. And we become His hands and feet when we pursue these things. Don't let anybody tell you that these gifts and passions that you have to offer to the world are meaningless and that your worth is only in relationships and that's just what you're waiting for this whole time. No, use what you are being given right now. And the more that you follow these things, the more you will fall in love with your life. You'll fall in love with your life because you will see God present every single day, loving you through these gifts. But of course, bring God into this process. Don't just be like, okay, I made this list and I'm just going to go do those things. Go to adoration and specifically ask God, what are you calling me to do with this time? How are you calling me to help people with these specific gifts and passions? Please lead me in that direction. Because if God wants you to do those things, there's going to be doors that are open for you. I recommend doing the St. Joseph novena. Anytime I've ever done the St. Joseph the Worker novena, I always get an answer. Always in relation to my career, my vocation, my passions. It might not look the way that you think it will, but you will get an answer, and the answer will always lead to your greater happiness, even if you don't expect it. Trust that God is asking you to use these gifts right now. Remove the fear. And remember, your path is not going to look like everyone else's, and that's amazing. God made us so diverse and unique and different. Our gifts are as diverse as creation. So go ahead, use your gifts and passions, and live a life of meaning.